The Chinese looked not at the world of matter, energy, and space, but the world of time. But what is possible to know about the future is levels of novelty which future states will fulfill by the happenstance of unpredictable events. The hexagrams are the elements in the Chinese physics of time. And eventually, I think the Chinese sages who practiced this form of meditation noticed a flux at the center of the stillness, which they called Tao.
At the heart of ancient China, thousands of years ago, a knowledge was born that has endured to this day, crossing centuries, empires, and revolutions. This knowledge was condensed into a text that is not an ordinary book. It has no single author. It wasn't written in a day, nor in an isolated era. It is the I Ching, or Book of Changes, an oracle that has been considered sacred by emperors, sages, and philosophers. But what exactly is the I Ching? Why can a set of symbols, hexagrams formed by solid and broken lines, hold such deep answers about time, life, and destiny? Get ready to dive into one of humanity's oldest and most fascinating mysteries. In this video, we will explore the I Ching, the ancient oracle. We'll travel from its legendary origins in ancient China to the psychedelic and fractal visions of Terence McKenna, who saw in its hexagrams not just symbols, but the mathematical imprint of time itself. We will discover how this ancestral code connects with Jung's synchronicity, with the structure of DNA, and with the possibility that we live in an informational reality. And at the end of the video, I'll show you how you can use it yourself to move forward on your path when you need clarity. The mythical history of the I Ching. Legend has it that the I Ching originates with the mythical figure of the Yellow Emperor, Huang Di, one of China's first sovereigns and great sages, who lived around 2800 BC. It is said that during a time of great confusion and chaos, Huang Di was visited by a sacred turtle emerging from the Yellow River. On its shell, the markings formed patterns of lines, the first traces that would later become the hexagrams. These patterns, called trigrams, represented the fundamental forces of nature: heaven, earth, water, fire, thunder, wind, mountain, and lake. From these trigrams, the 64 hexagrams that make up the I Ching were constructed, symbols that form a map of constant change. The I Ching was conceived not only as an oracle, but as a reflection of the universal flow, a symbolic expression of the Tao, the way, the invisible principle that guides the continuous transformation of all things. The philosophy of change. The heart of the I Ching lies in change, in constant movement. In Chinese, the term mutations is key. Nothing remains the same. The universe is in perpetual flow. The solid lines, yang, and the broken lines, yin, are the dual representation of this dynamic: light and shadow, expansion and contraction, creation and destruction. This system describes cycles that are reflected in nature, in the seasons, in human life, and in historical events. That is why the I Ching not only helps to predict future events, but also teaches us to understand the present moment within its context of continuous change. The I Ching and the synchronicity of time. One of the most fascinating concepts associated with the I Ching is synchronicity, a term popularized by Carl Gustav Jung to describe meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by linear cause and effect. Terence McKenna, thinker and explorer of consciousness, helps us understand that the I Ching works precisely along this line. It does not predict the future in a deterministic way, but rather connects the mind with the temporal fabric, with a space where past, present, and future intertwine and resonate. Like wave interference, time is not a straight line, but a fractal weave where distant moments influence the now. So, when we consult the I Ching, we are tuning into that temporal resonance, capturing a reflection of the invisible flow of the Tao. Terence McKenna, the visionary who reinterpreted the I Ching. Terence McKenna was not a conventional scientist, nor a traditional mystic. He was something harder to classify, an explorer of time, language, and consciousness. He studied biology, ecology, and literature at Berkeley, but soon realized that the most important answers weren't found in classrooms, but in the depths of the mind. In the 1970s, he embarked on an expedition to the Amazon with his brother Dennis in search of visionary plants. From that experience came his first book, The Invisible Landscape, a work where he connected psychedelics, neuroscience, quantum physics, and the I Ching. For McKenna, the I Ching was not just a sacred book or an ancestral system of divination, it was something much more ambitious, a fractal model of time. What does this mean? That time does not flow linearly, like an arrow, but like a wave, a pattern that repeats at different scales, in empires, in dreams, in emotional states. And it was then that McKenna proposed a fascinating idea, that the universe not only has a fractal structure, but that each moment in time is like an interference node between many other moments, not just from the immediate past or future, but from distant ages. As if each instant were a unique resonance generated by other converging eras. He compared it to desert dunes, which hold the imprint of the wind that shaped them. In the same way, our everyday experience would be the visible trace of an invisible force, the very structure of time. From that perspective, the I Ching would not just be a symbolic oracle, but a kind of source code, a system that reflects the geometry, the cycles, and the internal logic of nature. The ancient sages did not just see symbols, they saw a pattern, a universal encoding that manifests in biology, in DNA, in nervous systems, and in celestial orbits. This parallel suggests something even more radical, that the universe, rather than being a blind machine, could be an informational creation, a simulation, or a coded system, and that the I Ching, with its mathematical precision and its structure of 64 hexagrams, is an interface for reading, and perhaps even interacting with, that hidden code that organizes reality. But beyond the technical, McKenna's intuition was this, that the ancient Chinese sages didn't invent the I Ching. They discovered it. They accessed its structure in deeply altered states of consciousness, slowing their breath, silencing the body, until they could feel what they called the Tao, a vibration at the center of silence. And it was in that stillness that they perceived the pulse of time and turned it into a language, the I Ching, a code capable of describing the movements of the soul, of history, and of the universe. The Tao, the invisible pulse of the universe. The Tao cannot be seen, it cannot be touched, but everything that exists flows within it. Long before Buddhism existed, before the word God became dogma, the Chinese sages already spoke of the Tao, the invisible principle that unites and transforms all things. It is not an entity, nor an external force, nor a god in the Western sense. It has no fixed form or essence. The Tao is movement, rhythm, constant change. It is the invisible current that builds and destroys worlds, but it never does so with force or violence. It acts like water, yielding, flowing, surrounding, and dissolving. This ancient, poetic, and profound intuition was seen by Terence McKenna in a new light. The Tao is not just a metaphor for the universe, but a real structure, a wave, a vibrational pattern. A frequency that can be measured, a vibration that can be felt, if you know how to tune into it. In the West, science has studied waves of sound, light, electromagnetism, the quantum field. But the sages of the Tao did it without laboratories or particle accelerators. They did it by turning inward, silencing the body, shutting down the mind, until they perceived that subtle and dynamic flow that shapes the world. By observing, recording, and codifying its cycles, forms, and repetitions, the I Ching was born. A symbolic language to translate the flow of the Tao, a tool to listen to its voice when it chooses to speak to us. The I Ching is not just a mystical book or an esoteric oracle, it's a manual for navigating changing reality, a symbolic expression of a cosmos in perpetual motion. But beyond symbolism, the Tao and the I Ching share a deep connection with modern science. Terence McKenna brought this ancient wisdom into mathematical and biological territory. He discovered that the I Ching has a surprising correspondence with the molecular structure of DNA, which also has 64 basic units called codons, just like the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. It's not by chance nor coincidence. The I Ching reflects, in a symbolic language, the fundamental patterns underlying both biology and physics. It is a proto-system of time physics, describing temporal flow in fractal and cyclic terms, where each hexagram represents a particle of time, a unique moment that relates to others in an eternal web. Thus, the Tao, the I Ching, biology, and physics converge in an integrative vision of the universe, where the flow of time and life itself are manifestations of the same deep dynamic. To understand the Tao is, therefore, to understand the invisible pulse that moves everything that exists. How to use the I Ching today. A map for the flow of time. In a world that seems to speed up, where decisions weigh heavy and clarity sometimes vanishes like mist, the I Ching offers something unique, not a rigid answer, but a map. A map to navigate the crossroads of destiny, the moments of doubt, the intersections where logic alone is not enough. As Terence McKenna would say, the I Ching doesn't tell you what to do, it tunes you to the rhythm of the Tao, to the invisible pulse that moves the universe. Consulting the I Ching is an act of connection, a dance with time. It's a way of asking the cosmos, what is happening now? How can I flow with this moment? Whether you're facing an important decision, a personal crisis, or simply longing for clarity, this ancient oracle invites you to look beyond the surface, to feel the movement of change. Are you ready to hear its voice? The ritual. How to consult the I Ching. An ancient method for reading the I Ching involved a relatively laborious process, sorting 50 yarrow stalks. A more modern method uses a series of coin tosses with 3 identical coins, copper pennies work, with distinguishable heads and tails. In each case, the process is repeated 6 times, and each result produces 1 line of the hexagram. Like a building, the hexagram is constructed from the bottom up, with the lower line considered the first in the interpretation of the text. In the description and pinned comment, I'll leave some links where you can explore the step-by-step process and also access websites that let you perform the reading automatically, quickly, and easily. That way, you can try it for yourself and begin to familiarize yourself with this ancestral language. Each hexagram offers a metaphor, a poetic image of the moment. For example, hexagram 2, the receptive, might suggest that you open yourself to intuition and let the flow guide you. Read the text calmly, reflect, and write down what resonates with you. Act with the Tao. The I Ching does not make decisions for you, but like a wise friend, it helps you tune in to the rhythm of the moment. In times of indecision, a hexagram can show you the forces at play, whether it's time to move forward with determination, Yang, or to wait with patience, Yin. For Terence McKenna, the I Ching was not just an oracle, but a code that revealed the fractal patterns of time. Consulting it means entering into a dialogue with the universe. Each coin toss is an act of synchronicity, a moment in which your mind touches the invisible fabric of the Tao. Today, the I Ching is still alive, just as relevant as it was thousands of years ago. The next time you feel stuck, when the path seems unclear, try this ritual. Toss the coins, draw your hexagram, and listen. What is the Tao telling you? What pattern is emerging in your life? That's it for today's video. I hope this information was useful and enriching. Thank you so much for watching until the end. See you soon.